I was saved from my stalker ex by a hot Santa Claus. The bar was dimly lit, with muffled laughter as the people were watching me getting escorted from the room. "Okay, buddy, you've had enough shots for today," one of them said, their voice heavy with irritation. "Go to sleep, Tim," another chimed in, someone who clearly knew me. I nodded vaguely, letting my feet carry me through the familiar streets. It was almost muscle memory now. My instincts leading me home, while my mind floated somewhere else. I was at the lowest point of my life. If going to work drunk was legal, I'd probably do it every day without a second thought. 5 months had crawled by since I finally ended my 2-year relationship with Daniel. 2 years of my life wasted, suffocated by his lies, manipulations, and relentless victim blaming. But the breakup didn't end my suffering. Instead, it brought on a new kind of torment. How so? Daniel wasn't just my abusive ex. He was my boss, and he refused to let me go. He was always there, watching, finding reasons to corner me, and pushing himself into every part of my life. I knew I should do something, but I didn't have the courage. I hated myself for being too much of a coward to stand up to him. And so, I turned to alcohol. It numbed the pain, at least for a little while. The next morning, I woke up with my head pounding, like a drumbeat in my skull. "Another hangover," I muttered, dragging myself out of bed and searching for painkillers I always kept nearby. My eyes landed on the front door. The keys were still hanging in the lock. "Shit," I groaned, realizing how easily someone could have just walked in. In a frantic rush, I grabbed my laptop and some mismatched socks before bolting out the door to avoid being late for work. Sliding into my chair, I was greeted by a looming figure. Daniel. He stood in front of my desk with his signature sharp smile. "You're late," he snapped. "That's the 3rd time this month." I glanced at the clock. "It's literally 8 a.m., I said, brushing him off. His smile twisted into something nastier. "It's 8:02, actually. December's coming up, Tim. You know how busy it gets around the holidays, and how getting in time here is valued." I sighed internally, debating if it was worth asking him. "About the holidays," I began cautiously. I was hoping to get some time off around Christmas to visit my family in Florida. Daniel folded his arms, pretending to think about it, though I could see the smugness written all over his face. I'm not sure. A lot of people have already requested time off for Christmas, but maybe I could make an exception if we discussed it over coffee." I clenched my jaw, refusing to take the bait. "We agreed, Daniel. No mixing business with pleasure." His expression darkened. "Right," he said, his voice icy. "Well, it just so happens that Stacy and Greta have been waiting for their turn to take some time off, and they've worked hard this year. Looks like you'll need to postpone your little Florida trip." "Got it, boss," I muttered, leaning back in my chair as he walked away. My headache from the night before was finally starting to fade, but now I could feel a new one creeping in, courtesy of Daniel. And it wasn't even Wednesday yet. Sometimes, while working, I find myself scrolling through job boards, searching for open positions in my field. Being an IT specialist wasn't just my career. It was my escape, something I ventured into on my own. That's how I met Daniel. At first, he was soft-spoken, warm, and charming. It didn't take long for me to fall for him. I got swept up in his cheap tricks and false promises, and before I knew it, we were living together. Things changed when our former boss retired. Daniel, with his undeniable skill and charisma, was promoted to department head. The job itself is steady, and the salary is good. But let's be real. Daniel won't fire me. Not because of my performance, but because he likes having me close, within his sight, under his thumb. I'm the only one who stayed in his life long enough to believe, however naively, that he might change. Change his manipulative habits, his relentless need for control. Now, as the boss, Daniel is untouchable. Everyone kisses up to him, pretending to be his friend, all while walking on eggshells, terrified of being fired. As I typed away, my mind drifted. My fingers paused on the keyboard as my phone rang, snapping me back to reality. "Tim, how are you doing today?" I recognized the cheerful voice. Erica, my funny, ever-resourceful, next-door neighbor. "I'm doing all right, Erica." "What's up?" I replied.
"I need a favor," she began, her tone warm but slightly frantic. "I'm organizing an early Christmas charity event. You know, a Santa Claus surprise kind of thing for the kids. But our program crashed, and the laptop is completely out of order. Can you swing by and see if you can fix it?"
There went my evening plans to feel pity for myself.
"Sure, Erica.
Anything for charity." I could hear the relief in her voice as she sighed.
"Oh, thank you so much, Tim. You're a lifesaver. I will text you the address."
I was feeling pretty confident that I could wrap this up in under an hour and still make it to the bar. I glanced at myself in the mirror before leaving. Dark eye bags drooped under my tired eyes. My lip was still slightly swollen from an embarrassing drunk scuffle a few nights ago, and my hair was a mess that hadn't seen a comb in days. I was not as pretty a sight to look at as I used to be. I really need a makeover, I muttered to myself. At this rate, I'm going to stay single forever. Reluctantly, I made my way to the mall, where Erica was bouncing around.
"Oh, my hero!" she exclaimed dramatically, throwing her hands up as if I'd just flown in to save the day.
"Here to save the day, ma'am," I replied with an exaggerated bow, playing along. She handed me a broken laptop and pointed to a website that wasn't functioning.
"You can work in the changing room. They've got a nice sofa in there," she said, motioning toward the cozy little space in the back of the mall. "If you need anything, just holler."
"A glass of beer would be nice," I joked, heading into the room. Once inside, I sat up on the sofa, tuning out the faint Christmas jingles playing over the mall speakers. The changing room was oddly connected to a small bathroom with showers, but I didn't pay much attention to it. I figured no one would wander in. As I worked, my eyes drifted to a Santa Claus costume hanging on one of the racks. Pretty cute, I thought, letting myself smile a little while sipping on the beer Erica had kindly delivered. Just as I was finishing up the job, the bathroom door swung open and the jingles suddenly grew louder. I froze as a man stepped into the room, completely naked. Water dripped from his broad shoulders and chiseled torso, trailing down tattooed muscles that seemed to be carved out of marble. His chest was powerful, his arms strong, veins visible beneath the skin. My gaze lingered longer than it should have, and I noticed his striking white beard and hair, which landed gracefully on his shoulders. Despite his appearance, he couldn't have been much older than his early 30s. His hair and beard gave him an almost mythical aura. His eyes, however, were wide with embarrassment as they locked onto mine.
Santa?
I stammered, unable to process what I was seeing. Oh God, I'm so sorry, he blurted, scrambling to find a towel. Erica said I'd have the room to myself. Classic Erica. Forgetful, as always. Yeah, I thought that too, I replied, quickly averting my gaze while helping him search for something to cover up. Not that I really minded the view. Well, he said, flustered as he wrapped himself in a towel. This is definitely an awkward first impression. I'm usually fully dressed when I meet new people. I gave him a small smile. First for me too, but it's okay. He glanced at the empty glass beside me and hesitated before speaking. I, don't drink, but if you're up for it, I can offer you a cup of coffee to make up for, this. After seeing him in all his glory, I could definitely use something stronger, but coffee would have to do. I nodded. He extended a hand toward me. I'm Cristopher, by the way. I coughed to clear my throat, trying to calm my nerves, and shook his hand. I'm Tim. Nice to meet you, Santa. I mean, Cristopher. We sat in one of the mall's coffee shops, ordering coffee and starting the usual chit-chat. So, Cristopher, I started, what do you do in your life? I'm a construction worker. Always loved the thrill of it. He chuckled. And you were right. I work as a Santa Claus, but I do it mostly in charity events for the kids. Also, I do rock climbing in my free time. Your schedule must be packed, I said while stirring sugar into my coffee. I work at an IT company, juggling several projects. He looked amazed. Yeah, you have that vibe as an IT guy. I chuckled. It's that obvious? Yeah, calm and collected. And I never saw an IT guy who is not cute. My cheeks turned red. Does he really think that I'm cute? Well, I've seen many Santas, but I never saw a Santa with more muscle than you. We both laughed it off. The rest of our coffee time went into harmless conversation and getting to know each other better. Cristopher was 3 years older than me, living alone in the city. Oh, my gig is about to start, he said to me while looking at the clock. You can stay a little longer and watch me get into the act if you want. Sure! I blasted my answer like it was programmed to do so. He went and changed into his Santa Claus costume and went to start the event. The kids gathered around and chased Cristopher like an ice cream truck. He really went into the role, cheering up kids and petting them on their little heads with his gloves. Who has been good this year? Let me see your hands, he shouted, while people dressed as reindeer were carrying the carriage of gifts. Children's laughter and excitement fill the hall of the shopping mall, praising Santa for his thoughtfulness. He memorized every child's present which they sent to him prior in the letter to Santa. He managed to sort all of them in one line to wait patiently, while casually letting out a ho 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 in between. He is a really happy man, I thought to myself, while wishing I could be as happy and cheerful as him, having random flashbacks into the past. After some time, I figured I could return home, not bothering him any more than I already did. Walking home, I realized how refreshed I was after meeting Cristopher. After one conversation with him, I felt more stress-free and not wanting to continue my night at the bar. But my happiness was short-lived. As I was walking home, quietly humming a song, I saw a blue Porsche drive past me. Daniel pulled up beside me. Like my new ride, Tim? He called out, a smug grin plastered across his face. Following me again, Daniel? I shot back, keeping my tone sharp and my pace steady. He cut the engine and stepped out, blocking my path like he owned the street. I had a dream about you last night, he began, but I turned my back and kept walking. Listen, Tim, he called after me, his voice dripping with false sincerity. Let me keep this short and sweet. I know I've made mistakes, but I have everything now. A great job, nice cars, a good life. The only thing missing is someone to love me. And I want that someone to be you. I'm a changed man. Changed my ass, I muttered under my breath before stopping to face him. Daniel, I don't want anything to do with you. You broke my heart. Let me heal. He stepped closer, his presence heavy and suffocating. Let's take a ride, he said, more of a command than an offer. I clenched my fists. Stop telling me what to do, I snapped, brushing past him. But before I could get far, he grabbed my wrist. That's when I felt it, the anger rising, my patience wearing thin. I was ready to fight back when a calm, steady voice cut through the tension. Is there a problem here, gentlemen? Cristopher appeared. He moved between us, forcing Daniel to release my wrist.
This doesn't concern you,
Daniel barked, his focus entirely on me. It does when I see someone ignoring a clear no, Cristopher replied, his tone firm but composed. I was looking for Tim, and it seems I arrived just in time. Daniel hesitated, his eyes darting between us. Without another word, he jammed his hands into his pockets, pulled out his keys, and muttered, "See you at work, Tim," before speeding off. Cristopher turned to me. Are you okay? That guy's a real piece of work. Thanks. That's my boss. I left out the messy X part. I'd just met the guy. Let me walk you home, he offered, gesturing down the street with a warm smile. I hesitated, but nodded, grateful for his presence. As we walked, I finally asked, "What are you doing here anyway?" I realized I forgot to get your number after our last chat, he said casually. My heart skipped a beat. A hot Santa was asking me for my number? Wait, did you follow me? I teased, raising an eyebrow. Not exactly, he chuckled. I finished up soon after you left and saw you ahead. Then I noticed some jerk stopping in the middle of traffic just to talk to you. So I figured I'd check things out. Seems like he has a crush on you. You have no idea, I replied with a forced smile. Are you two, dating? Cristopher asked, his voice unsure. Heck no, I blurted out, almost laughing. It's a long story. Maybe you can tell me over coffee tomorrow, he suggested, his grin turning playful. Butterflies fluttered in my stomach. Sure, I'd like that. When we reached my apartment, Cristopher glanced around one last time, as if ensuring Daniel hadn't doubled back. Well, this is me, I said, pointing to my door. Now you know where I live. Now I know where to pick you up, he replied, smiling. See you tomorrow, Tim. Take care. Wait, I called after him, almost reaching for his hand. Thank you. He nodded. Anytime. The next day, the clock ticked slower than usual as I waited for my shift to end. For the first time in what felt like forever, I had someone who made conversation feel effortless. When the day was finally over, Cristopher was waiting outside. He smiled when he saw me, and I felt a rush of warmth. He drove us to a small, vibrant bar that seemed plucked straight out of the 80s. Colorful lights, retro decor, and disco music humming through the air. He ordered a coffee. I, out of habit, went for a large beer. It wasn't until the drinks arrived that I realized my mistake. I felt heat rush to my cheeks. So, you like to drink? Cristopher asked, his tone curious but not judgmental. I watched him take a sip of his coffee, noticing the way his hand lingered on the cup. There was something about his posture, the way his fingers twitched slightly, that gave him away. You like to drink too, don't you? I teased, gesturing towards his hands. His lips twitched into a small smile. Liked, he corrected gently. I lost someone pretty important to me, spiraled into drinking for a year, and nearly destroyed myself. Liver failure was the wake-up call. I told myself enough was enough, and I've been sober ever since. He paused, holding my gaze. Don't think I'm judging you. I did it for me. And it worked. I stared at my beer, feeling the tiniest pang of guilt. Can I ask who you lost? My ex-husband, he said quietly. Turns out his gaming buddy from work was also his bed buddy. 3 years of my life wasted. But I pulled through. Shit, I said, genuinely feeling the weight of his words. I'm sorry to hear that. There was a small part of me, though, that felt relief in learning that he was gay. I opened up about Daniel, telling Cristopher everything. How he'd belittled me, lied, and flirted with other guys behind my back. How I'd finally built the courage to leave. only for him to resurface as my boss. Cristopher leaned forward, his voice low and steady. Maybe it's time for another step forward. Risks are terrifying, Tim, but sometimes they're the only way out. I've been where you are. It gets better. Pain doesn't last forever. His words struck something deep in me. We talked more about letting go, sharing the weight of our heartbreaks, finding a strange comfort in each other's honesty. He got it. He understood in a way that didn't need extra words. The music shifted, and a funky disco beat filled the room. I couldn't help myself. My shoulders started moving to the rhythm as I sipped my beer. Cristopher noticed, laughing softly. You've got moves, he said, his grin infectious. I smirked. You haven't seen anything yet. Then show me, he said, standing and holding out his hand. I hesitated for half a second, but his playful smile disarmed me. I took his hand, and he led me to the dance floor. Cristopher was smooth, confident, but not overbearing. We mirrored each other's steps, playful at first, but there was an energy between us, like the music wasn't the only thing keeping us moving. At one point, he spun me around, and we ended up closer than I'd expected. For a brief second, I froze, but he didn't pull away. His hand on my waist felt steady, grounding. You're not bad at this, he said, his voice light but his eyes intense. You're not so bad yourself, I shot back, unable to hide the grin spreading across my face. We danced like that for a while, teasing and testing, the space between us growing smaller. Cristopher twirled me with unexpected grace, the colorful bar lights swirling around us like a kaleidoscope. For a split second, I flinched, my instinctive distrust kicking in, but his hand was steady, catching me with ease. Don't worry, he said softly, his voice cutting through the music. You can trust me. I nodded, letting myself relax in the moment. When we finally left the bar, Cristopher insisted on stopping for hot dogs at a street cart. I watched him eat with such enthusiasm that I couldn't help but laugh. The crisp winter air was biting, but the warmth between us kept the cold at bay. As we walked, I spotted the street vendor selling roses, their red petals almost glowing against the frost-covered cart. I stopped without thinking and bought one, handing it to Cristopher. How do they survive out here in the winter? I wondered aloud, more to myself than him. Cristopher took the rose, his fingers brushing mine briefly. Maybe they're tougher than they look, he said, smiling. When we reached my door, I turned to him, holding the moment as long as I could. Thank you for tonight, I said. I honestly can't remember the last time I had such a good time. Likewise, he said, his eyes warm. I noticed a flicker of something in his expression before he gestured toward my face. You've got some ketchup. Before I could react, he gently touched the corner of my lips, his thumb wiping the spot. The touch sent a shiver through me. Acting on impulse, I leaned in and pulled him closer. Our lips met. The kiss was slow and warm, filled with an intensity that both surprised and thrilled me. When we finally pulled apart, Cristopher leaned in and kissed my forehead. I'm performing tomorrow at the mall, he said softly. I'd love if you came to see me. I nodded, my heart still racing. I'll be there. As he walked away, the rose still in his hand, I leaned against the door, unable to stop smiling. Did I actually kiss the guy on the first date? How cheap am I? But I did say truthfully, I haven't had this much fun in years. 2 weeks later, I wasn't that sad, hollow guy anymore. Or at least, that's what I told myself most days. Cristopher had a way of pulling me out of the darkness, helping me forget about Daniel and all the ways he tormented me at work. Sure, Daniel still nitpicked every little mistake, still tried to corner me with his fake charm and empty invitations to talk things out after hours. But knowing I had Cristopher waiting for me after work made it bearable. Of course, healing wasn't a straight line. I had days where I slipped back into old habits, found myself at the bar staring at empty glasses, chasing numbness. But Cristopher had this uncanny ability to sense when I was spiraling. His calls would come at the exact moment I needed them. I didn't know what he saw in me or why he cared so deeply, but I'd never met anyone like him. He was patient and kind in a way that made my walls feel less permanent. It was Christmas Eve, a night that would forever be etched in my memory. The office was nearly empty. Everyone except me, of course. I was stuck finishing some mundane task I could have easily left for after the holiday. That's when Daniel showed up. He walked over to my desk, dropped a small, neatly wrapped gift in front of me. "For you," he said, flashing that uneasy smile that always made my stomach churn. I raised an eyebrow. "What is this? A go home, it's Christmas pass?" I asked sarcastically, shoving the gift aside. "Just open it," Daniel urged, nudging the box closer to me. Reluctantly, I peeled back the wrapping paper. Inside was a red Rolex, the one I'd dreamed of owning for years but could never justify buying. "I can't accept this," I said, pushing the box back towards him. "It's too much." "You deserve it. You deserve the world," Daniel said, his voice dropping into that familiar manipulative tone. "And I deserve you. Way more than your little Santa/construction worker." I froze, my hands tightening into fists. "So that's what this is about. You're trying to buy me back. Again." Daniel leaned against my desk, his legs pulling my chair closer until I was practically nose to nose with him. "I'm just saying I know I'm better for you. He's a nobody, Tim, and I know where he works. It would be a shame if he suddenly found himself out of a job." That was the breaking point. "Why are you so obsessed with me?" I snapped, yanking my chair back. "Move on, Daniel. I have." Daniel smirked, his voice dropping into a whisper. "I like chasing things I can't have, and let's face it, I do have you, just not in the way I want." His words hit me like a sledgehammer. He was right, wasn't he? As long as I stayed in this job under his thumb, he owned me. I stormed out of the office, my thoughts filled with rage. The bar was the only place I could think to go. I ordered beer after beer, chasing a numbness that refused to come. I'd forgotten all about Cristopher and our plans until my phone buzzed. "Hey, where are you?" Cristopher's voice was calm. "Celebrating Christmas," I slurred. "You're drunk, aren't you?" he asked. "No. Well, maybe a little," I admitted, trying to sound nonchalant. "Come join me." 30 minutes later, a hand landed on my shoulder. I turned to see Cristopher standing there. "What happened?" he asked. "Nothing," I muttered, raising my glass. "Just getting into the holiday spirit." "Is it Daniel?" he pressed. "Talk to me, Tim. Let me help." When he tried to take my glass, I snapped. "Back off, Cristopher. You're not my dad. Don't be a buzzkill." His jaw tightened, but he didn't back down. "I'm trying to help you, idiot. Look at yourself. You're a mess." "I don't need your help," I shot back, my voice rising. "I'm not some child you need to babysit. Just leave me alone." For a moment, he didn't say anything. Then his expression shifted from worry to disappointment. "You want to destroy yourself? Fine," he said quietly. "But don't expect me to stick around and clap for it." He turned and walked away, leaving me alone with my shame. He was right, of course. I was self-sabotaging, letting Daniel's control dictate my life, even when I swore I was done with him. Fueled by a mixture of anger and liquid courage, I pulled out my phone and opened a new message to Daniel. "I quit." With trembling hands, I hit send, finally breaking free from his hold. At least I did something. Something I should have done a long time ago. The cold hit me like a punch in the face as I stumbled out of the bar, my head swimming with regret and booze. "I am coming your way Wait for me. I barely typed in the message and hit send to Cristopher. Might as well share my location in case I don't make it, considering how drunk I was. I had an hour to sober up before Cristopher's show. An hour to try and fix the mess I'd made with my drunken stupidity. I'd blown it, and now I needed to let him know how much of an idiot I was, how much he mattered to me. Snow whipped around me in a furious storm, and my boots were already soaked by the time I reached the end of the block, my teeth chattering as I trudged forward. Can't go anywhere without a cab here, I muttered to myself, raising my hand to flag one down. After what felt like the longest 10 minutes of my life, a car finally pulled over. Relieved, I climbed in without checking for a taxi sign. "To the mall, my good sir," I said, rubbing my hands together for warmth. "I can't take you to the mall, Tim," came a familiar voice from the driver's seat. Daniel. "What the hell are you doing here?" I shouted, my voice cracking. "Stop following me! I'm on a mission!" Daniel's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror, narrowing as he took in my soaked clothes and flushed face. "Look, I know I've been a prick. I realized that after you quit. I messed up, okay? I'm sorry." Something felt off. "Just stop the car. I'll get out and we can talk about this tomorrow." But as I glanced out the window and noticed we'd driven past the mall, my stomach dropped. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Did you hear what I said?" Daniel didn't respond. Instead, he kept driving, his jaw clenched. The car slowed to a stop in front of his house. My pulse quickened as Daniel reached into the glove compartment and pulled out something metallic. For a split second, I thought it was a gun. Daniel opened his door, walked around to my side, and yanked the door open. "Get out," he said, his voice low and firm. "What the hell, Daniel?" I stammered, my body stiffening. "I didn't think you'd actually have the balls to quit," he said, his tone dark. "But now, we're going to fix this. You're giving me a second chance." "I'm not doing anything with you," I snapped, trying to muster up some courage. He grabbed my arm, his grip tight. "You don't get it, Tim. You're mine. You've always been mine." Daniel shoved me through the doorway, slamming the door behind us. His eyes burned with anger as he grabbed my arm and pulled me further inside. "We're going to rebuild what we had." I yanked my arm free and glared at him. "I'm not your little puppet, Daniel. You don't control me." His expression twisted with rage. "You think you can just walk away from me?" He shoved me backwards, and I stumbled, catching myself against the wall. I wasn't as strong as I wished I was, physically. I couldn't match him, but my will was stronger. "You don't own me, Daniel. Not anymore." The fury in his eyes flared, and for a moment I thought he might strike me. Before he could, a loud knock echoed through the house. "Mail!" a voice called from the other side of the door. Daniel's brow furrowed as he turned to the door. "What the hell?" When he opened it, Cristopher burst through, dressed in his Santa Claus costume, snow clinging to his red coat. He was panting, like he'd just run a marathon, but his eyes locked on me with a fierce determination. "Step away from him," Cristopher ordered. "The police are on their way. This ends now." Daniel scoffed, his lips curling into a sneer. "Oh, what's this? Santa Claus here to save the day? Am I on your naughty list?" Cristopher didn't flinch. "You've been ruining Tim's life, and it stops tonight. Let him go." Daniel lunged at Cristopher with a growl, but Cristopher was ready, and tackled Daniel to the ground with surprising strength. The two struggled, knocking over a lamp and a chair in their scuffle. "Tim, get back!" Cristopher shouted as Daniel tried to claw his way free. The sound of sirens grew louder in the distance, and I stood, frozen, my breath caught in my throat. Just as Daniel wrestled to his feet, Cristopher slammed him against the wall, pinning him in place until the front door burst open, and 2 police officers rushed in. "Hands behind your back," one of them barked, pulling Daniel away from Cristopher and snapping cuffs on his wrists. Cristopher turned to me. "Are you okay?" I couldn't speak. Tears blurred my vision as I stepped toward him. Before I knew it, I'd thrown my arms around his neck, holding him tight. "Thank you," I choked out, my voice trembling. "Thank you for being here, even after I pushed you away." Cristopher's arms wrapped around me, warm and steady. "I said you could trust me." I pulled away from him, the adrenaline still coursing through my veins. "How did you know where I was?" Cristopher adjusted his Santa hat. "When you left the bar, you sent me your location. You said you were on your way to me, but I got this terrible feeling. I went out to grab some stuff for the show and saw you in the car with that prick. I knew I had to do something, so I called the police and followed you in my car." His voice softened, his hand brushing a strand of wet hair from my face. "You got me really scared, Tim. I'm sorry this happened to you." I blinked at him, his words sinking in. Why was he apologizing to me? That should have been my part. He straightened his coat, pulling me closer by the shoulders. "Let's get you sorted out." The snow had slowed to a soft, glittering fall. As we started walking, I turned to Cristopher, catching the faintest hint of concern in his eyes. "Can we still make it to your show?" He smiled, that warm signature grin of his that made my chest ache. "I already called for a substitute," he admitted. "But we can still go to the market. This Santa's got gifts to give." I stopped, looking at him through the snowy haze, with a boldness I didn't know I had. "I have a wish, Santa." Before he could respond, I gestured to a mistletoe that was above us, and grabbed his coat, pulling him down into a kiss that melted the chill around us. His lips were warm, commanding, and so refreshing. When we pulled apart, both of us breathing heavy, his gaze was steady and unwavering. "Don't ever think you're less worthy, Tim. You're more than enough." By 6 months later, I had stopped drinking entirely and had embraced a healthier lifestyle. Hiking with Cristopher became a regular escape, and the gym transformed my body in ways I never thought possible. For the first time, I felt strong, confident, and alive. On a crisp summer morning, we reached the summit of a mountain. Both of us out of breath and grinning like idiots. The view was spectacular. Cristopher dropped his pack and tackled me into the soft grass, pinning me beneath him. "This," he said, leaning closer, "is where we're staying all day. Forget hiking down." I laughed, but my breath hitched when his lips brushed my jaw, moving slowly towards my ear. "Thank you, Cristopher," I murmured, my voice low, "for everything. I've never felt better in my life." He propped himself up on his elbows, looking down at me, his hands tracing lazy patterns on my chest through my shirt. "Please stop thanking me," he said, his tone soft yet firm. "You did this, Tim. You chose to turn your life around. And don't you dare belittle yourself over someone ever again." His eyes darkened, smoldering with intensity. "What makes you special is your kindness, your understanding, and how you care for people. That's what I love about you. Oh, and the fact that you're ridiculously sexy doesn't hurt either." I felt heat creep into my cheeks. "Well," I stammered, my heart racing, I know I love you. And I want us, to last." Cristopher's grin turned wicked. "Is this one of those times when we gays rush into things? Move in together and start planning a wedding after 6 months?" I laughed, my hand sliding up his back. "I'd marry you right here and now, Cristopher." His expression shifted, desire flickering in his eyes. He leaned down, capturing his lips with a kiss so deep and passionate it made my head spin. "I love you," I whispered again, my voice trembling with emotion. "I love you too," he replied, his forehead pressed against mine. "And just so you know, next time, you're carrying me up this mountain." Who would have imagined that one person could nearly destroy my life while another could completely transform it? I've gone from a timid coworker to someone who confidently stands up for himself. Cristopher and I have moved in together, and yes, I proposed. He said yes without hesitation. We're planning a Christmas wedding, a fitting symbol of the changes and fresh beginnings we've embraced. As for Daniel, I have a restraining order in place, and that's a chapter of my life I've closed for good. These days, I'm running my own IT startup, and it's thriving. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that life is too short to settle. If you're not happy, don't be afraid to start over. The end. Have you ever started over for true love? Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing to become a part of our Rainbow Force, and stay wholesome!